Hello, hello, my friends. This is National Sales Director Leah Lachlan. Welcome to our 90 Days of Greatness. And so this is after this week, we have 4 weeks left. So we're like 2/3 of the way through this program, which is always mind-blowing at the pace of life and how quickly time goes by. And so our topic this week is unit meetings and events. And so let's go ahead and just dig right into this. So let me just share a few thoughts on meetings to start it off, and then we'll start to get more into the nitty-gritty parts of it. So first thought, without my weekly unit meeting for 5 years that I was a sales director, I would not have become a national sales director when I did. And I'm pretty sure I can say that with like 100% confidence, that it was my meeting that was such a driving force in the growth of our unit and in the growth of our area. Now, let me pause and say that if you ask 100 national sales directors how they built a national area, you would hear 100 different ways to do it. And so there are different ways to do it, but I never like to teach theory. I can only teach you what I did. That's the only way I can train and teach authentically, is just to share what I did. And so are there national sales directors who became national sales directors without having a unit meeting? Probably. I'm guessing that there are. I don't know of one, but I'm sure there probably are. And so there's no one way to skin a cat. And the last thing I would want you to do is just to get too locked into like, oh, that's how she did it, so I have to totally emulate that. And although there are important key concepts to be emulated when you are moving up to a position that someone else has gone that journey before you, there's still going to be your way, your style, and your life and all the variables of your life that go into how you become a national sales director, or how you become a Cadillac sales director, or how you become a senior sales director. Okay. So I'm going to teach you what I did, but I want you to always like keep that flexibility in your brain that this is one way of many ways to do it. Okay. I'm going to share you my one way and hope you can at least glean one or two things to implement into your business. Okay, so I'm going to very, very boldly speak about the meeting and how valuable it is, but I want you to keep that in your mind. There are many ways to do this. Nothing I ever say is gospel truth. It's just one way to do it. Okay, so I hope this blesses you. But the meeting, okay, the meeting. You guys, it's a part of our culture, I believe. Our Mary Kay culture. And I believe it's what sets us apart, is the weekly meeting where people come and people are gathered and we're in community and we're connected and we're growing and we're sharing and we're supporting each other and we're walking through life together and we're sharing our product and we're sharing our opportunity. Like it's who we are and it's how we roll in Mary Kay. I'm sure you guys have had the experience as you talk to friends and people who are a part of other direct sales companies. You guys, they're often not plugged into a weekly meeting because either their leader doesn't offer it or their company just isn't that's not a part of how they roll. And that truly sets Mary Kay apart. And one thing when I am sharing the business opportunity that I will touch on so much is like what is unique about us and what I know I can bring to the table for you and offer you that you may not find in other places is I can offer you community. I can offer you a sense of a family. I can offer you a chance to be connected. I can offer you a positive support system of people who will literally walk through life with you through the ups and the downs. And I will train you. I will equip you. I will lead you. And so much of that happens at the meeting. Okay. And so, yeah, it was a huge part of the growth of our unit and the growth of our area was a consistent weekly meeting that every week and every month I worked on mastering. And I don't think I ever got it perfect. And let me just free you up and tell you, free you up from any pressure you're putting on yourself. Man, I don't think I ever had one unit meeting that I thought, man, that was flawless or that was perfect. There was always, a little something I always wanted to tweak and work on. So it was always a work in progress, and we were always tweaking and improving and growing. And so take that pressure off yourself for it to be perfect, because I don't think that exists, especially for a unit meeting. Like, good Lord, there are just way too many things going on and too many people. It's like the ultimate mental multitask. You're like, your brain is like on overload as the leader because you planned it, you set it up. You're focused on so many different groups of people, your guests, your new people coming in, recognizing and affirming, making sure the training is on point, making sure you're connecting with your key people, connecting with all the guests, closing everyone out, getting the sales. I mean, it's some big girl stuff happening at that 2-hour unit meeting that it does take. It takes all of you. And so the meeting, I believe it's important. And if you're in a position in your business, in a season in your life, in a place where logistically you can make it work, I mean, just make it work. And I believe it's worth every ounce of energy that you would give to it to make it work and to make it awesome. And I took it from something that wasn't awesome to something that was. So it's not like it was just always awesome. It was not. We had seasons of it not being awesome, but was always working on it being awesome. Okay, so let me speak to the new directors right now, and actually just anybody, because this situation comes up for all of us, not only new directors, but also seasoned directors and senior directors, about holding meetings together as sales directors. Okay, I have some strong opinions about this, but then also let me just say again, like, you got to work with what works for you. I know some people who live in a city where the cost is so high to rent any sort of space that it doesn't even make sense to meet on their own because the cost is so high. And so naturally, directors are going to team up and come together. Okay, so that would be a situation where it might negate what I'm about to say. I know there's certain seasons of life where it just makes sense to come together. I have very strong feelings about directors meeting by themselves, just one director, one leader. But I know there are seasons and situations and circumstances that absolutely allow for directors teaming up. But let me just share some thoughts with you about a director meeting by herself. That's the way I've always been taught. I primarily learned that from Pam Shaw, who also has very strong feelings about directors meeting together. Now, new directors, I think it's totally appropriate for you to stay with your senior for like your first quarter or two. So your first 3 to 6 months of debuting as a new director, I think it's totally appropriate. In fact, even like maybe more beneficial to stay with your senior director and just get your feet on the ground and get yourself stable and keep yourself in the field without having to worry about planning a meeting. And you stay with that senior, and then maybe 3 to 6 months, depending on your comfort level and your circumstance, you would break off and have your own meeting. But here's the thing, you guys, only one, I am telling you, only one leader will emerge in that room. And it may be you and it may not be you. But only one will emerge and will be viewed as the leader. And even though it might be your meetings together, it's really so-and-so's meeting. And you just happen to be the other leader that's a part of it. And so there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with only one leader emerging. Nothing wrong with that. Except that the one thing that could be wrong with it is the one that isn't viewed as the leader doesn't have the same opportunities to develop herself as the leader in the room and to practice being the leader in the room and to practice leading people and to practice owning it and to practice taking like full responsibility for the full room. Okay. So the unit meeting is just the training ground for leadership. And the better leader you become, the more your business grows because everything rises and falls on leadership. And so to team yourself up with a lot of other leaders, I believe puts a lid on your potential leadership growth because we learn the best when we just have to get out there and do it ourselves, and we can only rely on ourselves. And so maybe stepping out on your own, if nothing else, allows you to develop yourself more as a leader. And growth of your business always follows personal growth and leadership growth. Okay. So this is how success grows. This is how success goes. Is you're growing as a person and as a leader, your organization is growing in unison and in the same at the same level and pace. It's just a natural thing that happens. If you want more out of your business, you become more. And so don't take away that opportunity to grow as a leader, because you're meeting with a bunch of other leaders and sort of relying on them. Also, you guys feel the pressure to fill the room with your own people. It's pretty fun to know you're going to show up in a meeting space where there's going to be a lot of people and a lot of energy. That's fun. Not so fun to show up in a space where you're like, oh, I don't know who's coming. It might feel a little awkward if there's only two guests there, or like, oh, there's not going to be that same energy in the room. But that can be, at least it was for me, that was some good positive pressure to fill the room with my people, like my consultants, my guests, my people's guests, like my people. I wanted that room filled with my people. And even if I had to walk through the painful, awkward season of low attendance, not a lot of consultants, not a lot of guests, I was willing to walk through those seasons and to feel the pressure of filling it with my room. Because if you don't feel that pressure, if you know you're going to go to your weekly meeting and the room's going to be filled, then you can easily just sort of let it go. But if you know you're going to go to that room and the room's going to be empty, you're going to do things that week to make sure that it's as full as you could possibly make it. But it kind of lets you off the hook when you're going to show up and it's going to be full, regardless of your efforts and regardless of who's there representing you. Okay, so it's some positive pressure. Whenever we can put a little positive pressure on ourselves, it's a good thing. It makes us better, sharpens our edge. Okay, so I get a question a lot. What do you do with your out-of-town people? And do the best you can to find an adopted director. I know sometimes it works out, and sometimes there's not anyone or not someone who has the capacity to support her. So do the best you can. And if there is no one there, I have in many different seasons traveled to my out-of-town people on a very conditional basis. It wasn't like I'm coming to do a weekly meeting indefinitely. It was more like, hey, I'm going to come. Let's see who we can get together. And I go and I kind of feel it out. And then I say, hey, if you guys want to do this, maybe we'll try it twice a month. But the expectation would be that we fill this room with people, with your guests, with your team members, with your prospects. And I'm willing to come and support you in that. If you're willing to be intentional about being there yourself and bringing people with you. And so there are many seasons that I traveled to different cities and locations on a conditional basis to build and grow in that area and support those people who didn't have anybody, any local director. I've already told my story of my personal guests. Okay, you remember the story? It was like the biggest game changer. I was sitting in the Panera community room by myself for the second or third week in a row, almost canceled my meeting because that seemed like the easier option, but decided that the only right decision was to take personal responsibility and start inviting my guests. And I started inviting my own guests, and it was just my own guests, and I had a party, but then they started recruiting, and slowly it turned into, like 2 or so years later, into standing room only, rockin' awesome meeting filled with people and wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things. And it really, really drove the growth of our unit in our area. And so it started with my own personal guests. But here's an additional thought that I don't think when I originally told that story is that those were people I always met at a party. And this was ideal for me to book and then rebook to the party and then share and then recruit. Um, and so the people at my meeting were booked from a skincare class or a party. Unless they were a customer, the exception to that would be a previous customer in the past who had been to a party or had been to a facial, but maybe had been a while. I would invite her directly to the meeting. People I would never, ever invite to my meeting were referrals, people I didn't know, or just cold leads. I don't think I ever did, like ever, ever, ever. Because unless, yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get, right? And I wanted to really know who is going to walk through that door and represent me and be in front of my unit meeting and in front of my unit and representing me. And so I would never call a referral and book her to my meeting. Yeah, I to this day, I really don't think that I would. And I trained my consultants to do that as well, although not all of them listened to me. In fact, a lot of them did not listen to me at all and would often bring their referrals or their cold leads to a meeting, you guys. And 9 times out of 10, it didn't go as well as it could have because I don't know, they need a layer before they enter into that meeting, or they're going to feel like most of the time, not all of the time, they're going to feel like they signed up for something that maybe they didn't sign up for. Unless you are very explicit during the booking call that their pampering appointment will also include recognition and introduction of all the consultants and a very clear presentation of the marketing plan. Like, unless they know those things are going to happen, I think they feel like they were sold something on one end and then didn't get that thing when the appointment actually happens or unfolds. I wouldn't feel comfortable selling a pampering session or a beauty experience to a referral and then them showing up at my meeting unless you are truly doing like a full beauty experience and that they know like marketing is going to be a part of it and they're going to have a chance to make a decision about the business opportunity. But I would just be really careful about that. I've seen that just go south too many times that I train my people that it is more ideal that you're bringing a layered customer to that meeting, somebody who's already been in front of you for a party or a beauty experience, and then they come to the meeting. Otherwise, I think you've got a lot of people in the room sitting kind of with their wall up and thinking, oh, well, she told me this was going to be this or that. Or like, why are you telling me spending all this time talking about the business opportunity? I came for a facial. I came for a spa experience. Why are you telling me so much about the business opportunity? Now, are there exceptions to the rule? I mean, have we signed up referrals on the spot and they've been so pumped to start their Mary Kay business? Sure, absolutely. But I think in my observations and in my experience, that's the exception to the rule. And more the rule is that they're a little uncomfortable and feel like they weren't really fully prepared for what was going to happen unless you were just really super explicit about it. And I always wanted to, as a director, be up in front of people and share the business opportunity really boldly with people who knew that that was going to be a part of what we were doing. And so I trained my consultants that as they were coaching their guests, that they would know that this would also be a training night. Like there are going to be other consultants there who are there for training. So we do a little bit of education and we introduce them and do recognition. And then you will hear more about the Mary Kay business opportunity at the end, just so you can learn more about what we do and what kind of company you represent when you purchase our products. Okay, so my consultants were trained to say that to their guests, and I said that to my own personal guests, so there was no surprises. Okay, so I'm spending too much time on that topic, but just felt like that needed to be addressed. And so let's move on to more meeting logistics. Okay, so here's my agenda that I have shared on a previous Hangout, but I'm going to go over it again and kind of explain reasons I loved it. Is that at 6:30 or whatever time you like to start your meeting, but at 6:30 to 7, we're consultants coming, showing up with their guests, and going through the Miracle Set, Satin Hands, satin lips, and getting referrals and getting her foundation on. So all of those things were done by the time we started the meeting at 7. And so I loved that 30 minutes because people were just coming in, they were getting set up, their guests were arriving. We had some music on. It was a casual, comfortable environment. All other consultants who were not bringing guests, they knew that they could show up between 6:45 and 6:55 because they didn't have any guests to facial. And so the room's still a little bit quiet at that time because the bulk of consultants who maybe didn't have a guest were coming later. And so it gave me the opportunity to go around to every single guest, introduce myself, kind of get to know them, build a rapport with them, memorize their name so I could use it later because that builds trust. And they could just ease into the Mary Kay environment and just kind of de-stress a little bit, unwind. A lot of them are coming after work or coming after being with the kids for a full day. And so they could relax and unwind and get comfortable and enjoy the products in a peaceful, comfortable environment. And so then by the time we started at 7, with introductions and recognition and all of the consultants are there and the music's turned up and it's all high energy, they've eased into the environment a little bit more. I've had a chance to get to know them and make a connection. They've had a chance to connect and chat with their consultant. And I feel like it's not as abrupt as sometimes it can be for for guests entering into the Mary Kay experience. And here's another thing is that nobody was ever late. Even people who were late weren't late. Let's say someone was 20 minutes late with her, either the consultant or her guests. If they were 20 minutes late, that means they were showing up at 6:50. They still had 10 minutes to sort of get settled and get the tray out and get the products in. They may not have finished the whole facial, but they have time for that and there's leeway for that later. But they at least got settled and sitting in their spot and ready to go by 7, so that at 7, there was never anyone coming in and there wasn't a distraction or a break in people's attention because everybody was there and ready to go at 7. That's just kind of my own personal thing. And I always had this, it would irritate me when people would walk in late. So that kind of created the space for people to be late without it being a distraction. And so, yeah, sometimes when you have a woman entering into the Mary Kay culture, we forget that we do have a very different culture. And when you're used to it, you forget that it's very different for a working woman coming from a day job or corporate America, sitting down, and then immediately there's clapping and we have crowns, you guys. We take crowns and put them on people's heads. We take sashes and ribbons and put them on people. That is so out there for some people in their maybe corporate America experience. And I found that people were more open to what we had to share when they had a chance to ease into our culture and our Mary Kay environment from 6:30 to 7. Okay, it was just my own personal preference. Okay, so then from 7 to 7:30ish, we would do introductions and recognition. And then 7:30, we would all split. And so consultants would go do training while guests stayed and did their color, usually a dash out the door look. And either myself or a red jacket would teach that portion. In addition to the purse game or the ticket game, so a little bit of marketing, and then the roll-up bag close. So that would all happen then while consultants are getting their training. Now, before I had the extra space to do training and the extra people so that training and guests could be happening at the same time, we just did it all together. And consultants would just listen to myself or a seasoned consultant do all that, and it was training for her. So we did not always have the room capacity or the people capacity to separate, but that's ideally what I liked. But we had to grow to that. Okay, so we would separate. And then I got to the point where I could separate new consultants from seasoned consultants. And so new consultants were doing pink boot camp and new consultant training, either taught by myself or a seasoned red jacket. And then seasoned consultants were getting more advanced training, either taught by myself or a red jacket. And so there was someone teaching guests color, there was someone teaching new consultants, and there's someone teaching seasoned consultants. And every now and then we didn't have the people capacity to do that. So sometimes it would just be like a video or a CD that would have them listen to if I really needed something to kind of fill in the space. But so we didn't always have that people and space capacity, but that in my mind was ideal, was to have that. And we did have to grow to that. And so then when the guests were done with their facials their makeovers and their color at 8, that's when we would start marketing from 8 to 8:30. And I would share my eye story and show my dream book and do marketing and close with A, B, or C. So they had an opportunity to make a decision about the business opportunity. And so I'd be done with that right about 8:30. And then usually 8:30 to 9-ish, consultants were closing out with their guests, like getting the sale, booking the follow-up appointment, setting up the career survey. And they knew they had to wait till then to start that process. And so they weren't busting out lookbooks and closing sheets and sales tickets until that time, because that can become really distracting. So when there's lookbooks out and people are like wanting to purchase their products, but you're wanting to do marketing and you're like, oh, I'm showing my eye story, but she's filling out a sales ticket. That's just distracting. So consultants knew they couldn't bust that out till we were all done. And then from 8:30 to 9, or sometimes just 8:45, they would finish that up. Okay. So that was my most favorite agenda ever. And I've tried multiple different ways to do that, but I loved that one the most. Every quarter we would switch themes. Now, I think it's awesome when people have a new theme every week, but I could just never, I don't know. I just could never wrap my mind around that. I don't know. I just never did that because there wasn't space in my brain for that. And so we did quarterly themes, and it was connected to the new products. And usually the new limited edition color products would be a part of our new theme, and we'd try to name it something fun. And it would still be the same agenda, just during the color portion, they're trying the new limited edition colors for their dash out the door look. So every quarter that would change. We'd have a new meeting theme, and then we would update the closing sheet to close the roll-it bag to feature the new limited edition color. And so it was really the exact same meeting every single week. Just every theme there was every quarter there was a new fresh theme based on the new colors that came out. Okay. And then let's talk a little bit about recognition. Let's see here. Okay, so of course we did recognition, and the most basic recognition I did was just standing recognition, and sort of after I welcomed everyone, everyone stands up, and I would do standing recognition just for little things that I wanted consultants to do. And these came from being frustrated that my consultants weren't doing these things, and so I wanted them to do these things, so you recognize what you want more of. And so I would start with just everyone who was there stand up for just being there. Okay, so we're all clapping. And then they could stay standing for being on time, for wearing their Mary Kay pin, for being in their Mary Kay attire. And those were like the big things I wanted to see that at certain seasons I wasn't seeing, just showing up on time, just basically being on time, wearing their pin, wearing their Mary Kay attire versus their scrubs from work. Like I wanted all those things happening. So we recognized that. And then after that, it would be submitting their weekly numbers. They could stay standing. If they were registered for the next event, they could stay standing. And if they brought guests, they could stay standing. So whoever was left standing at that point got to come up and get a little gift from me. And so that's kind of how we kicked off recognition. We also did recognition for On Target for the Power Program and On Target Star. We pinned all of our new consultants. Once a month, we recognize everyone who moved up, everyone who finished the Gen X program, which is now the Power Program. Once a quarter, we recognized all stars and brought them up to the front. And then, of course, we recognized the Queen of Sales and Queen of Bookings at the end and crowned them and recognized them. And so that's the core of the recognition that that we've always done. Of course, if there's a special program or a special promotion that is special for that month or that quarter, of course, you would throw that recognition in there as well. But that was the core of the recognition. Excuse me, I have a little cold I'm getting over here. And so then I would also always have this trifold like poster of all of our seminar goals that tracked all of our stars. It tracked our unit club. It featured our red jackets, our Gen X achievers. It was kind of the core goals that we had that year. And every time I would come to the meeting, I would like update it. I'd fill it in. I'd put new pictures up. I'd fill in the thermometer for our unit club. And so that was always in front of them as well. And sometimes I would draw attention to that, like, here's where we're at, kind of a state of the unit address and recognition for where we are for our seminar goals. But that was always updated and visible. And then another poster we always had up is who's registered for the next event. So it'd have the event name and then the spaces for the goal that I had for people to be there. And we would fill in names as people were registered. And pretty often they would get a gift at the meeting for registering. And they would receive that at the meeting and their name would go up. Okay. So that pretty much covers it with recognition. I did want to quickly touch on affirming your consultants. I've touched on this before, but I feel like it's worth saying again how important it is that we really affirm our people for who they are. A compliment is about what is seen, where an affirmation is what is unseen. And there are nothing wrong with compliments and acknowledging what you can see in their performance, but much more touching to the heart to really affirm her for who she is. And you want to, in your unit as the leader, to create a culture of affirmation and to create a group of women who are always affirming each other and loving on each other and looking for the good. Like, you want your people looking for what's good, looking for what's right and what's noble, and then saying it. So see the good and say the good is what you want to train your people to do by modeling it. Always seeing the good and saying the good. And of course, authentically and sincerely, not just flippantly or insincerely. But you want to see the good and say the good and affirm people with a lot of genuineness. And so when you model that week after week after week after week, they learn that from you. They pick it up from you and they start affirming each other. And this beautiful family and this beautiful culture unfolds in your unit. And then when guests come in and they see that and they're a part of that, people want that. Women are hungry for that. When they get to see a woman up in the front of the room being affirmed for who she is, there's a longing and a desire to be recognized like that. And we have a unique culture in that sense that other women at their day job in corporate America, I mean, she's not being affirmed for who she is. She's not. I mean, 9 times out of 10, she's not. And it's most likely a focus on where she's falling short or what she can improve on. And so let our culture stand out because of how you affirm your people and how you set the tone for having a culture of affirmation and seeing the good and saying the good always. And also, less is more, you guys, with affirmations. I feel like in Mary Kay, we just kind of get on this like word throw up tangent and just say a lot of things fast. And when you're affirming someone, I think less is more. Pick 1 or 2 things versus going on and on. Or just using generic word like, you're so awesome, this is so great, you're going to be on target for your car before you know it. That's just it's not as impactful, it's not as meaningful, versus picking one thing you love about her. Like, oh my goodness, like your joy. When you walk into the room, like you just exude joy. You light up every room that you walk into. And I can see why you consistently are selling a lot, because your customers would be so attracted to that joy. And we just so celebrate who you are, and we're blessed by your joy. So you're picking one thing and speaking to that. I keep a journal of like the key people in my area and in my unit, and will often pick 3 things I love the most about her, just like one word or one phrase, one liners about who she is, and write it by her picture or by her name. So that when you're kind of on the spot and she's the queen of sales, you're more likely to think of like, okay, why do I love her? What is it about her that I love? And you're going to think of those words like joy or compassion or consistency or um, courage, and you want to speak to those things about her. That's when you see people's eyes start filling up with tears, because you're speaking to their heart. And how I really practiced that was writing out postcards beforehand and thoughtfully thinking through what I wanted to say and then reading it to her. That was always a super moving part of our meeting. Okay, now I want to talk about closing guests. I am still to this day always sort of stunned when I hear of meetings that are happening where guests are there, but there's no close to it. Or no marketing. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But marketing, but no closure, no opportunity to make a decision, and you're just missing opportunities. You're missing opportunities if there's not a very clear way they can make a yes or no decision. Because of course, we always give people the dignity of choice. So closing people is not about twisting people's arms. Of course, it's about giving the choice, giving the dignity of choice. Yes, do you want this? No, do you not want this? Or are you a maybe? And let's get together and follow up this week. And so I was always really comfortable and got in the groove with doing A, B, or C, although I know there's multiple ways to close guests. But I always finished my I Story and Dream book and the marketing portion with you're an A, B, or a C. And also during the color part, when they're getting their color on, there would be either myself or a Red Jacket would do the purse game or the ticket game, the Mrs. Cab, MRS, CAB, and go through the marketing. So they sort of have heard the nuts and bolts and some details and some stories and some facts. So they've already had that layer. And so when I share marketing at the very end, it's really just my I Story and a dream book, and then closing them when I'm all done. And so A, B, or C, I start with C. C is customer for life. I'm not really interested in the business opportunity. I don't think I'll ever be interested in the business opportunity, but I am just really happy to be a customer and I enjoy the products. And with our C's, we do always like to get your feedback about our event tonight and just hear what you think and just get your opinion of the Mary Kay business opportunity. So we still love to follow up with you, and it's great education for your consultant. So she's got a video she's going to send to you, and we would love to follow up and get your feedback about it. Okay, so yes, the C's still did a follow-up career survey. You guys, I cannot tell you how many C's went to A's after multiple layers. I was once a C and moved to an A. And so don't dismiss your people who are C's that night, or your people who are 1s or 2s out of 10 on their interest level. I was once a 0 out of 10 on my interest level in the business opportunity. And so I would always say that after C's, and my consultants knew that if they had a C, they're still setting up a career survey, if that person is willing, the very next day. And of course, you're going to train your unit on how to do this. So that was C. B is, if you're a B, you're kind of thinking, you know what, buy me a coffee because I'm intrigued. You kind of caught my attention, but I would need more information and just have a chance to think about it and ask some questions. So if you're a B, we also have a video link we're going to send to you, and would love to set up a time to follow up, and we'd love to treat you to coffee to get your feedback and opinion of that. And so the B's, kind of the difference between the B's and the C's, is the B's I would more likely want to meet with live and in person, whereas the C's I would sort of let them be phone calls. The B's I wanted to see eyeball to eyeball. Okay, and then the A's were absolutely, I'm ready. I'm ready to make extra money, or I'm ready for something new, or I'm up for the challenge, or this seems really fun. Like, I'm ready. Let's do this. And so for the A's, we have the agreement. This is the order form for your starter kit. So you would have that at the front of your table. And we'll have you fill this out tonight. It orders your kit. In a couple of days, you're going to have Christmas come early because it's like Christmas opening up your starter kit box. And we're just excited to support you and help you get started. I would often offer maybe a little bit of incentive, some free products that night for people who were A's, just to get that yes decision in the moment. And then, you guys, and this is really key, I would go around to every single guest. Like immediately after it was over, music was turned up, I would grab my date book or iPad, and I would have agreements with me as well. And I would go around to every single guest, and I would get down to her level. So it's eyeball to eyeball, because you don't want to tower over people, because that's intimidating. You want to get down to her level, and I would crouch down, and I would tell them this was going to happen. I'm going to say, I'm going to come around and find out if you're an A, B, or a C. And so I'd go around to every single one and ask her if she was an A, B, or a C. And usually for the C's and B's, I'm so sorry, you guys. We're setting up career surveys times, and see, the consultant knows that that's what's going to happen. So she's already closing her out. She's closing the sale and booking the follow-up appointment and setting up a career survey. And so that's happening while I'm making the rounds. And here's why we don't do that stuff before, partly because of what I mentioned before, is that it gets distracting. And if the consultant, you know how sometimes people just take forever to like buy? They want to flip through the catalog and ask a million questions and like ponder what they're going to get forever. So you avoid that distraction while you're trying to do marketing, and it gives them something to do, so you have enough time to get around to everyone. So the consultants are trained that they're closing while I am popping around to every single guest. And the consultants are trained to, like, you don't let her leave. Like, you hold her there and just make small talk until I have a chance to get around to talk to her. And so, yeah, with B's and C's, we're setting up career surveys, and I've got my schedule. I mean, we're booking them right there on the spot the next day or the following day, ideally no more than 48 hours after. And that was the thing, a really big thing for my schedule, is that the 1 to 2 days after my meeting, I really worked on keeping open for all the phone calls we'd be booking there, and the new consultant welcome orientations for the people who were A's that night. So I've got my iPad ready to rock and roll with that. And then for the people who were interested, and you know who they are by this point, you know who those prospects are. I'm working on closing her and taking her from maybe a B to an A. So having a little mini interview conversation is what I'm doing, and overcoming her objections. And it's a quick conversation because you don't have time to like sit there for 30 minutes with her. But at least, like, if I felt and sensed that she had the capacity to move from a B to an A, I would pause there and support her in moving from a B to an A with questions and overcoming objections and validating what she was saying. And just making a connection. And then that's when you have to really pick up on body language, because some people are just like open and with you and ready. I mean, those people, they're ready for an agreement. And then you would notice you might take a step too far and her arms would start to close, or she'd look at her watch, or she'd look at the door. And then I would back off and move on to the next person, because at least I've got that career survey booked with her. And then the A's, they filled out the agreement. And then I was booking a welcome orientation with them the next day and making sure they got my welcome orientation video. So with every guest who was there was rarely anyone walking out that door without something set up with me in the next day or two, whether a follow-up call or a welcome orientation. Okay. I have observed at meetings where I watch directors do great marketing, do an awesome close, and then it's over and the director stands at the front and chit chats with people, and out go all of the guests. And there's no follow-up made with the director. Okay, and that's just missing opportunities. I mean, all your opportunities are walking out the door. And you may never talk to them again because the opportunities are leaving. Okay? So you want the opportunities on your date book for the next day or two. Okay. So then they would also be filling out some sort of sheet, some sort of marketing sheet that I would be doing. And mine changed over the seasons. I've used all kinds of different Think Pink marketing surveys. There's all kinds of ones out there. But I would somehow be getting their feedback that I would be collecting. Okay, I'd be collecting. So I'm asking if they're A, B, and C, and then I'm taking her sheet with me that has all her feedback, her name, her number, and I'm leaving with it. It's my sheet. It's nobody else's sheet. And that's the sheet that I filled in my boxes. Remember my boxes that I track the people I'm in front of? Got home, and that next day I'm filling in my boxes, feeling awesome about all the boxes that are filling up. Every single one is a win. Every single box is a step closer to our goal and finishing NSD. And that's literally how I viewed the boxes. They were all getting me closer to my ultimate goal. And I let them feel like a win and feel like a sense of accomplishment. And so I'm filling in my boxes. And then if by some odd chance my opportunity walked out the door without her being on my date book, I'm calling her the next day. I'm calling and following up with her to set something up and just at least follow up. So I'm leaving with all of those papers. Another thing about leaving with the papers is you're going to catch things. You're going to catch maybe some of her responses on that sheet. And it just gives you good, valuable information to follow up with and also reconnect with her consultant about. Okay, so that's that. Real quickly on training topics. I'll say that now. There were training topics that I really just sort of rotated through. And 3 of the core ones were being a star. We were constantly focused on that. So I would say probably once a month, we would touch on that. And it would be training on the Star Consultant program. It'd be crunching numbers. It'd be selling training. It'd be 21 ways to finish your star. Another topic that I also rotated through every quarter and sometimes every month was the next event coming up, or romancing it, going over details, having people register online, preparing them for how we roll at events. So that would be another one. And then, of course, every quarter, there'd be the product preview party. And so those were just sort of my go-to trainings. And I'll tell you more about that in just a second. I really want to track with my notes here so I don't miss anything. By the way, this just made me think of something that I don't think I included on our conversation last week about the Star Consultant program, is that I would have this. I loved this. It was on target star reception. And I did this before my meeting once a quarter at the 4-week mark. Okay, so 4 weeks into the quarter, they're on target if they've got 600 wholesale in. 8 weeks into the quarter, they're on target for a star if they've got 1,200 wholesale in. And then, of course, when the quarter ends, 1,800 or higher puts them at the star level. And so for several years, I did these on-target star receptions where really just 30 minutes before the meeting started in a back room, so separate from where everyone else is entering, I would just hang out. I would bring snacks and food, and people who were on target just came, and we just chatted and ate together and took fun pictures together. It was totally casual. There was no agenda. I didn't do anything except connect with people and talk to people and love on people and have fun with my people. And they kind of felt special because they got this early entry, and any opportunity they can have to hang out with you outside of an official agenda or an official Mary Kay event just helps to build relationships. And so I would put a lot of energy into making sure as many people as possible had that 600 wholesale in by 4 weeks into the quarter. And you guys, it's pretty easy. And you've got a lot of people because of a variety of reasons, maybe ordering a lower inventory or tracking their bracelet, or just people who needed to place a big order. Within that first 4 weeks, you can get a lot of people at that 600 mark and then invite them to the reception. And it's an easy way to get people plugged into the meeting who don't normally come, but they're pretty consistent sellers and orderers. Like, "Oh, come to this reception. People have food and snacks and hang out. I wanna get your picture and catch up with you." I mean, people come to that. Free food, they're there. And so, that was an awesome, awesome event. And then I would bring them to the front of the room at the meeting, really make a big deal about those people, and then did it again 8 weeks in for 1,200 wholesale, and then the 4th time, we're just celebrating the stars at the actual meeting or at the outing. So I forgot to mention that last week, but star consultant, star on target star receptions, that's what I called them, were a big part of building lots of stars in my unit. Okay, so oh, a meeting assistant. Okay, so I remember I talked one time about just embracing the chaos. Like, it's just a lot of mental multitasking. I mean, it's a lot going on. And a reason I did not bring my own personal guests as a newer director is because it was too much for my brain to even handle. It was just so much going on. And so part of me just decided I'm going to get over that and embrace the chaos. But then the smarter part of me is like, okay, how do I make this work and make this easier on myself? And the answer was to hire an assistant. And for several years, I had an assistant who was the daughter of just an adopted consultant in my unit who they always came. They weren't even in my unit, but they always came and showed up and were loyal and were just always there, rain or shine. And she was in college and needed extra money, and I asked her to help me. So she would come beforehand and set up everything and bring all my stuff in. And then right when the meeting was over, while I'm closing out guests, she's packing everything up. And so that by the time people leave, she's handing me my keys because she packed up my car and I'm getting in my car and driving away versus at that point then having to pack up. I'm sure you have all been there. Like, you get done with the meeting and everybody leaves, and then there's this room you have to clean up and pack up and, do whatever to so you can go home. And so I loved that she would hand me my keys and I would be on my way. I think I paid her $30 a meeting and just gave her money right then and there. That was probably pretty generous really for what she did. And maybe not, I don't know, because during the meeting, she would collect all the numbers, all the weekly numbers for our quarterly tracking. And she would hand me this very beautiful little chart afterwards of who turned in their numbers so that I could do recognition and follow up the next day. So there's all kinds of things I had her do that just made the flow of our meeting very, very smooth. And then she would be closing out the sales for my guests. Okay. So I would do A, B, or C. And then I'm going around to ask everybody if they're an A, B, or C and get their sheet. During that time, she's actually closing the sale with all my guests with the sales ticket. So I actually wouldn't start with my own personal guests. My personal guests were always in the front row. I would go to that second row and start there. And so then by the time I got to my personal guests, she had already done their sales and helped them clean up and got their products for them. And they were all set. So then I would just come and book and ask if they were an A, B, or a C. Oh, no fun having a cold. Actually, Cliff made me this really amazing drink last night. He found this online. He juiced lemons and ginger, and then he juiced them in a juicer. I think a little bit of apple to cut the really sharp tartness of the ginger and the lemon, and then mixed it with turmeric and made me this drink. And it really, it was a game changer. Last night I took, and I was in really bad shape last night with this cold, and it just kind of broke everything up. And then I just juiced it again this morning, and it's really helped. So just a little tip, if you have a cold and a lot of congestion here, juice lemon, ginger, and turmeric. And it's like, whoa. It's probably saved me a day or two of being sicker than I am. I feel like it's just helped me to recover a lot quicker. So just a little tip for you there. Oh, goodness gracious. We have 6 minutes. Okay. So yes, my meeting assistant. Amazing. Worth every penny. Okay. I'm going to finish with how I coached the meeting. So 2 or 3 days before every meeting on my planner, I would have protected time to coach my meeting. And it usually took me about an hour to get through all of these things. And during that time, I'd be confirming my own personal guests and following up with them. And then I would be confirming and finding out from my key people who their guests were. So you've got people moving up, you've got people doing the power program, you've got people in DIQ, you've got people who want DIQ, like who are their guests who are coming. And they knew to expect it, and eventually, came to expect it and were prepared. But every week I'm like, okay, tell me who your guests are that are coming. Like who's coming? Who do I get to meet tonight? And so once they got used to the fact that I was going to ask them that question every week, they sort of got in that rhythm, and they would have a list ready for me. And I would be calling and confirming and reaching out to those people to thank them in advance, to just introduce myself, just in order to build a little bit of rapport, and to thank them for what it meant to their consultant and how it supports her with building her business. So when people get a thank you in advance and hear how important it is and how appreciated they are for doing something they haven't done yet, it just creates a sense of accountability. Like, oh, okay, this matters. I better show up to her. Like her leader contacted me and thanked me, so I better not bail on her. And then when they walked in and you happen to talk to them or maybe happen to text with them, there's like just a tiny bit of rapport. Like, hey, I'm Leah. I'm the girl who called you. Like, nice to meet you. And so there's like immediate rapport right away versus her not knowing you from Adam. And so I would follow up with my key people's guests. Not necessarily every consultant coming to the meeting or every new consultant, but my core key people who had goals. Like I wanted to support them in making sure they had guests there. So I would do that. I would work really hard to get the new people there. And a lot of that is just reminding them, when they're new consultants, they're not yet in the rhythm of investing time in the weekly meeting every single week. And so I would follow up with them quite a bit, like, hey, can't wait to see you this week. Are you able to come? Who can you bring? Or you're only 2 guests away from earning your pearl bracelet. I would just be reaching out and connecting with them. And in seasons that I actually had my new consultant training that night, I'd be reminding them about that training and what topic we were going to do that night and just catching up with where she was at with her pink boot camp. We also always celebrated people who finished Pink Boot Camp. I believe I've already talked about this, but that was another piece of recognition, is that anybody who finished their 4 sessions of boot camp would be celebrated at the meeting and be recognized for graduating. So I'm confirming new people, and then I'm planning training. I'm just planning it out, make sure we have a good topic, whether I'm going to train on it or ask a red jacket to train on it. I'm just kind of getting an outline. I was not one who planned training like weeks and weeks in advance. I usually did it like just a few days beforehand, partly because that's just how I did it. And sometimes because I just wanted to have a feel for where we're at, like maybe people are really struggling with this or that, so you want to touch on that. And I always wanted to give myself the space and just to do relevant training. Okay, cough attack. Hold on just a minute. Okay, now okay, I think I'm back. I almost actually postponed this till tomorrow just because I've been having cough attacks, but a lot less than I had yesterday after my ginger and lemon. Okay, so plan the training, and then I also delegated to red jackets. And so every red jacket in my unit had a role, and we would rotate, and I would touch base with them about their role and make sure they're prepared. So that was another part of coaching the meeting. Okay. And then real quickly on events, the events I did outside of my weekly meeting. Okay. That was the core one that got the most energy and the most attention. But then there were other events that I did. And one was our Gen X Girls Night Out. Once a month, like clockwork, we would always have that Gen X Girls Night Out for Power Program achievers, and for all new consultants were invited to it. My assistant actually just had it on her list that she would send out evites, and we primarily use that. Evites would go out to all of our Power Program achievers and all of our new consultants, and the event would be planned in advance. You're really glad you're not here with me in person, and I'm on a screen, so you don't have to worry about me getting you sick. Um, so we had that, and then I usually did 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, depending on what month it was and what season we were in, of extra guest events. And we would do like a little black dress night or a fake eyelash clinic or fresh fruit and faces, and we would have fresh fruit and just talk about skincare. My most favorite event was Pizza and Possibilities. I did it in my home. And so we were just sitting in my living room around the fireplace and just around the couch, very, very casual. You guys, that was like a money event because I don't know, there was something about meeting in my home and it was just very casual and we'd order pizza. We'd watch a video about Mary Kay and it was just really chill. And so people just felt really comfortable and it was a really warm environment. And I could always count on recruiting a lot of people at that event. And it was often an event, and this is how I sold guest events to my unit, is that that's where you bring your prospects. That's where you bring your best customers. That's where you bring your best hostesses. Those events were absolutely like, if the unit meeting wasn't appropriate for cold leads, then that event was like really, really not appropriate for cold leads because we would really spend a lot of time on the opportunity. We actually wouldn't do faces. I would share about body care products and more of our body care, and we would pass it around, and our fragrances, and we would pass it around and people could try the lotions and the fragrance and just learn more about other product lines that we had that aren't usually featured at a party. And it was a super awesome event. And then on Saturdays, I usually anywhere from 2 to 4 times a month, depending on the month. Actually, I don't think there was ever months I did it all 4 weeks. Goodness gracious. Okay. I would do muffins and makeovers on Saturday mornings, and that was a great event where we would focus more on glamour. So instead of a dash out the door look, we would do a full color look. I wouldn't do recognition like I would in the beginning. We jump right into skincare, do full color, and then I would do marketing. So that was again kind of sold as an event to bring someone to for their second appointment, or used for layering their people, not cold leads. As you can tell, I was not a fan of cold leads coming to my events because I just like them to be warm, comfortable environments. And then, of course, we did our star outings every quarter. We talked about that last week. And then my other big event was my unit awards night that we always did in July. After the year closed, we would recognize everything, like everything. We would recognize everything from PCP participation to, I mean, just anything and everything we recognized to make sure everybody got a win and was celebrated at the unit awards night. And that was also just an opportunity to vision cast for the new year. So, okay, we are at our time limit, you guys. Oh my goodness. Okay, this week done. We've got 4 weeks left. Pretty excited about that. So I will see you next Tuesday. You guys have a powerful day.